Hello, everybody. You're watching. Welcome back to another episode on the podcast. And I'm your host, Dr. Ron. And today I have with me in the studio Dr. Leah Ajayi. So we're going to be looking at, her journey in internal medicine. Like I usually say all the time, it's not all tech, tech, tech. We still need people in clinical care. So thank you so much, Dr. Ajayi, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm glad and honored to be part of this. Thank you so much.
All right. So for those of you who are still interested in clinical practice, so I guess you just bring your pen and paper to pick up a few points. So Dr. Jai, let's dive into the conversation. So let's meet you briefly. Tell us a bit about yourself, your early years in medicine, and how did you even get into medicine?
Thank you so much once again, Dr. Ron, for inviting me here. So my name is Dr. Leah Ajayi. Let me say, I'm from Nigeria, obviously. I'm Yoruba by tribe. Leah is an English and Bible name, so that's why. So I would say, so I grew up in Accra, Ondo State. So I was actually born in Accra, Ondo State. So my primary school was there, secondary school. I went to FDGC Accra. And I would say my passion for medicine or decision to study medicine actually started from there. From like, I would say maybe GS3, SS1. So, I was in boarding school for, I would say for like the first 3 years. And then my dad took me out and was like, okay, like you, this girl, you need like extra coaching and all of that. Because it's just like, oh, what are they teaching in school? So from like GS3, SS1, I was a day student. And I tell you, I was going for like extra classes, like chemistry lessons, biology lessons, further maths lesson, physics. Like every weekend, I had like tutors that were family friends that even English at that time. So I'll always go. It's looking back at that time, it looked so strenuous and it was so difficult. And I was just like, oh my God, what is this? But I tell you, little did I know, like I started seeing the result, like the effect, because in school, then my dad used to wake us up like very early, like 4 a.m. You have to read at least 2 hours before you go to school. Wow. And at night, you had like a schedule, like he's going to sit like in the sitting room and be like, if you sleep, you're in trouble. So little did I, and that sort of started building up. So like in SS2, like we do exams, like in my class, and I'm having full scores, like IS mark, like physics, chemistry, biology, maths. I was like, okay, what's really happening? I know that carried on. So towards the end of, before end of SS2, like I was representing my class when they called for competition, like they were picking me and all of that. We're going to represent the school. And obviously in Nigeria, the default is that medicine. That's the first thing. I think medicine and law. But I was in science class. But my dad, his main thing was medicine. Like, oh, you have to be in science class and do medicine. And I was the firstborn. So obviously it was not like, it was no brainer. Like there was no other backup choice to say, oh, this was something I was going to consider. And then by the time I then moved on to SS3, obviously by that time preparing for WIC and all of that. And all the old circle, because it's a girls only school of the other ladies we used to represent the school together, all of them also were planning to do medicine like almost 4 months. So it was just like, it was just by default. And I actually love sciences, particularly biology, even chemistry, physics. So like in my WIC, I think I had the third best result in my school, like all A's in almost all the subjects. So, and then obviously then I tried to apply. Oh, I didn't actually get admission the first year, I would say. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. I'm telling you. So, I think I chose UI and which other, I can't remember which other university, but after I went for the interview or something, that time you need to know people or something like that. But obviously I was thinking, we discussed and everything, but I didn't get in the first year. And then the second year, so then I was thinking, so most of my other friends, they went that we used to represent the school, they chose OAU and they got in. But I wanted OAU, but I don't know the reason why I chose UI. And then I was just like, it was really painful. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try there was this, I can't remember what they used to do. There's this pre-degree or something. There's a different name for the one for OAU where after you do 1 year, you can get into 100 level, like for medicine. So I registered for it. I did the exam. I think I had all the full scores in the exam. So I was like, oh, I'm sure we'll get in. But I also did JAMB that same year. And then it was obvious that, getting into medicine and all of that, like if you don't have connection and this and that, it was almost impossible. So I was like, okay, what other universities will I choose? So I chose University of Jos and University of Ilorin, surprisingly. So I went for both interviews and all of that. But University of Ilorin, the entrance, the list of the people they chose actually came out before University of Jos. And my mind was not there because it was a very going for that. I remember going for that pursue me interview in the school was so stressful. Like traveling all the way from Accra to Ilorin, like it was just I was just like, what is this? It was so stressful. So I didn't expect it. So it was someone that actually knew my cousin and saw, oh, this is the same surname that called and say, oh, do you know that they released the list that your name
And you
is
were
given
there.
admission for medicine and surgery? I was like, okay. So it was added 2 weeks to the end of registration. That was when I knew that, oh, I got so that basically so I started in 111 and all of that. And until then, so I actually graduated from University of Ilorin 2014. All through, obviously, medical school and, how rigorous it is and all of that. But I would say by 400, when you start the clinical, and when you start medicine and surgery, I was really interested. But then after I did internal medicine rotation, I was like, oh, I don't want to. And, back in Nigeria, obviously, with not having much resources, and I was just like, what exactly is this how medicine is supposed to be? Like, because then in internal medicine, then it's either you palliating people or people were just dying. There was no
You're
really,
moving
most
stuff.
of it was just theoretical, and I could not really incorporate it. And even as early as 400 level, I was just like, okay, I didn't see myself practicing in Nigeria. I was just like, okay, what's going to happen? But of course, 400, then by 500, when we did pediatrics, so I fell in love with pediatrics. Now we had a consultant who actually did part of his training in the US. So he came back. So, there was a lot of, the department was really dynamic. So I really fell in love with pediatrics. And so I thought I was going to do pediatrics. I loved the but I just felt, oh, I really love, the start and everything. I was going to do pediatrics. And I don't know the way the universe works or the way God works. So by end of 500, it was like an extended relative that, we've lost contact for like years. It just sort of came around to Nigeria. I think it was in the US. And just told my daddy, that you should let Leah do USM, Leah come to US. So by end of 500 level, I actually started getting the materials for USMLE. Like, he was like, oh, he was going to pay because I was like, how am I going to get the money? He said, was like, what's going to pay? So I was even like processing all the letter from school. But I didn't know any other person doing it. So it was also complex. I was just like, okay, because the nearest exam center was in Ghana then.
Yeah,
Ghana. And I was just like, yeah. And even the process of getting the school, the ECFMG and all of that, I was just like, this is so, like, I didn't know any other person doing it. So I was just like, okay, let me try and do it. But then I was just like, let me finish medical school. But by 600 level, then that was when I got to know about PLAB. So by the time we were about to finish, there was one of my classmates that we went to same secondary school in Accra. So she was like, oh, Leah, have you heard about PLAB? So I was like, okay. And then she was like, okay. And she, I think, was getting married early. So, and I think Fiat was in the UK. So obviously she was going to UK. But she was not going to do internship, so she was going to do SGT. But she was like, oh, like PLAB, it's just PLAB 1 and 2 that you can just do it. And then she sent me the link. I was like, okay, this is actually much more straightforward, than the old USMLE, because I didn't know. So I didn't have enough information on USMLE. Like, even if I did the part 1, I was like, okay, how will I go about the next step? So I was like, okay, then I'll just go about the PLAB route then. So in my mind, I just knew that whichever way it was, I was not going to do rest in Nigeria. I didn't know how, but I was just like, okay, I need to focus on this part because, the way in medical house job, I did my house job as well. So I was one of the best graduating students. So we're supposed to automatically get house job slots.
Yeah.
There was a lot of politics, and that's for that just discouraged. There was a lot of politics. We did not start until 5 months after. Because I don't know, someone sat on the money or something like that. I was just like, God, what is this? I was just like, okay, this is just a sign that,
you have to leave.
That I have to leave. So during that house job, I was just like, that was when I started preparing for my IELTS, IELTS, getting information. In fact, if you ask my classmate, they will tell you that right from then, yes, like she would know practice in Nigeria. I didn't know how it was going to be, but I was just like, I need to start working towards that. But then I'd known few people who knew more about the PLAB route. So I was
Yeah.
able to like just ask them, when it's best time to register and all of that. And obviously, as a female, you're also thinking, particularly in Nigerian culture, say, about marriage and this and that. So, no, to be honest, that's that. To be honest, that's the reality because there's this concept that if you travel, you get
You
someone to
won't
marry
see
and all of
husband
that.
again and all of
Yeah.
that.
So for me, I think I just had a open mindset that whatever it is, like I just have to first face that problem. Then anything else that comes alongside,
Yeah.
then I'll be able to just work it out. So by 600 level, I think by the time I was in 600 level, so I met my husband. Then he was finishing his master's in mechanical engineering. It was not like he had a plan to travel, but I was just like, okay, this person had goals and aspiration. Not necessarily that because the person was a medical doctor, because I mean, it's about really who the person is,
Where
what are
they're
this person
going.
goals, aspiration in life, rather than just the occupation. So I was like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. So I think even before I started my house job, so close to the time I graduated, then he then told me, he got a PhD scholarship for University of Nottingham, so he was going to travel. Even though I had not told him this was my plan about the
Plan,
plan,
yeah.
obviously. So I was like, okay, it looks like
Everything is falling in.
everything is aligning. It looks like it's the PLAB route, definitely. So that just sort of, I was just like, okay, I just need to face the PLAB route. So obviously he went to his PhD. So I think until after 1 year after he came back, we did like introduction and all of that. So by the time before I finished my NYC, so I even did NYC, even though I shouldn't have. I don't know. I don't know the benefit, maybe long term, but I did the NYC. And during that time, that was when I did the IELTS. I started preparing for PLAB 1 as well. Because I knew that, and of course, we already did like the introduction course already, so I was able to already had my BRP and all of that. So immediately we finished NYC, basically. So I just traveled there. So I did my PLAB 1 exam in the UK. So I moved to the UK October 2016 and I did my PLAB on December 2016. Now, this is the part where, now this one I see so many people on the PLAB journey and I see there's so much more resources to support people. It's really, really, really good. During that time, there was none. So I remember I had to wait for like 6-7 months to sort of just gather money to then register for my PLAB too. So even though I was in the UK then to register for PLAB. So I did PLAB on December 2016, then PLAB 2, I think June 2017. And then I got my GMC registration. And obviously that time there were lots of jobs.
Yeah.
I didn't need the visa because at that time there was a lot of issue with getting tier 2 visa. But luckily I didn't need a visa at that time, but there were lots of jobs like even NES, even NHS, like I think 3 offers. So I sort of went with the one I felt was the best.
Yeah.
Based on the hospital's ranking. So I started working December 2017. And I think as an IMG, the first place you start working really impacts and shapes your career or your decision or your mindset towards what you would do because that hospital, I mean, I was not the only IMG, so I think it was a recruitment for quite a number of IMGs. I think I was the only Nigerian in that batch, but a lot of Asians, there were a few people from Myanmar, so they were like, 6 or 7 of us. It was a rigorous interview process, but got the joy. It was a big tertiary center, Northwest Manchester then. But it was so supportive. So even as IMGs, like we had supervisors, we had portfolios. Even, of course, it was my first job in the UK. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just like, okay. But, my supervisor then was also an IMG, which is why I'm so particular about representation. Like to say, even if I've gone through a rough path, like others should have it easier. Others should have access to this information. Others should know that this is possible and that I have people like me in this circle in this way because it really means a lot. That supervisor was an IMG. I remember the poster presentation I had and the audit, the one I used to apply for IMT. He was the one that just said, just gather this information. So my job was just gathering the information. He did the write-up. He submitted the abstract to the conference, and he wrote my name to go and present.
Wow.
And, he was putting me through the portfolio teaching. So unconsciously, I was just doing those things. So for like, the conscious was for 3 years. So by the end of 1 year, like there's so many things that accumulated on my portfolio unconsciously, just because, the department we used to have teaching, and that time I was so eager about just, settling in. So I would volunteer to deliver
Yeah.
teaching sessions. Of course, that would involve reading and all of that. So I was like, okay, I'm happy to do the teaching session. So it would tell me, oh, you're supposed to send feedback. I will send feedback from, everything was in the portfolio, the audit, the poster presentation, case based. So it's really, and unconsciously, I was just like, okay, fine. Then I did, it was a stroke. Then I went to ICU. In the ICU as well, I was just like, even though I didn't know much about audit or QIP, I was just like, okay, let me just do something. So even though to me, looking back now, I was like, what did I even do? Did it really make sense? But they were so surprised. They were like, oh my God, you took the initiative. But me, I was like, okay, I don't really understand what but I just know that I'm doing
Something.
I did what cycle. I tried to, I think it was about name at the end of the bed of the patient in ICU dead, about just putting the right name, the identification marker and all of that. So I just spoke with few nurses and that was it. And then I talked about presentation and I just tried to say, this is what I did. But they were just like, oh my God, they were so impressed. They did feedback. I was like, okay. So, but for me, I think the main thing as an IMG is that when you are in a new system, be ready to, put yourself out there and really don't be afraid of making mistakes or say, if I do this presentation, what would they say about me and all of that? No, you get better with those feedbacks. But if you shy away and stay back, there's no way you would know what to improve on or get better. So by the time I finished the 1 year, so I went on maternity leave then. My portfolio, there's so many things already on that portfolio.
Was overflowing.
Yes, even though like I was in ICU, I would be like, oh, I want to assist. So I got signed up for central line, even at that time, arterial line. I was doing the like assisting. They'll say, oh, send us ticket, send us ticket. So it was, and I was like, okay. And then by that time, I now saw another one IMG. I think it was from Sudan or something, but it was born here. And he said, oh, he wanted to apply for IMG. So I was like, okay. So I started asking, about the information, just say, okay, what does it entail? Do I need to write the MRCP? And I was like, oh, no, you don't need the MRCP before you can apply for it. I was like, okay. And then he actually showed me that, I think one of these, they just showed me and just said, oh, this is what you need to do. I was like, yeah, okay. And then that was the time there was there's this other IMG, who is Pakistan, Omar Alam. So that was when this IMG Facebook group started, actually. That time, that should be 2018, 2019. And he was always doing blog posts. So I actually sat down, and that's why, I tried, like, I've started a blog post as well, trying to do YouTube, just trying to write, just to really help people, because I knew how much it really helped me. Like, I sat down with his blog post, what for them, I was trying to, so because it was like, oh, this is how I apply for CMT. So I sat down, I was looking through it, I was trying to read it. Even when I applied, I was trying to read through it, okay, this is what I should do, this is what I should do. So going forward, I'm like, how can I give back? How can I give back to people that are upcoming? So that's why I tried, just to do like medical education content to just let people know, because having the right information really, really matters. And by that time, then I applied for IMT. Obviously, I didn't know so much Nigerians also applying. Most people were going for GP, but by the time I looked at my portfolio, I looked at, the experience I already had in hospital medicine and how I really loved it. I remember when I was in stroke, the first stroke thrombolysis, and I was like, oh my God, wow. And the way the symptoms like transformed. I was like, wow. Like I was like, wow,
magic.
this is mind blowing. And I was so intrigued, which is why I was like, your first experience really shapes you. And I was like, oh, and I really, really just fell in love. Just like I rediscovered medicine all over again. And that was part of the reason I was like, okay, I'm going to just apply for IMT. Even though at that time we were subject to round 2 application as IMGs. So obviously we had to apply for the remaining slots. But I went for the interview. It was a face-to-face interview, like 3 stations, like 4 examiners each, carrying your big portfolio. And then I got the offer. I was like, oh, yeah, that was like, yeah. So, I mean, so that was sort of the start of the, of my IMT internal medicine training career. overall, I would say as an IMG, you have to be ready to just put yourself out there and just say, if this is where I find myself, I will try. And that's one thing about IMGs, we're very resilient. Wherever you find yourself, you will find your footing. But it's about really knowing that these opportunities are available. This is what I can achieve. There's nothing holding me back except myself. You might say, oh, yeah, many times you might be the only Black person there. It's normal. Many times that would happen. But don't let that get into your consciousness and be like, oh my God, how are they saying me? What do they think about me? No, it's better you make those mistakes, contribute, pick up and maximize opportunities. Yeah.
So looking at your IMG journey quote now,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, you've said we need to sort of put ourselves out there.
Yeah.
But again, you also mentioned that where you worked was very, very supportive. So when you look back now, outside this, were there other challenges that you sort of faced? And how did you sort of navigate those challenges?
As an IMG, there's so many challenges you will face. I remember that same place where I said they were supportive. My first job, it was a stroke unit. I think by the second or third month when I was on call. So it's a tertiary stroke center where you carry stroke thrombolysis break. So you have an SHO and a registrar on call. All the stroke calls come to you. Sometimes it's like 4, 5 stroke calls coming together. So you, as the SHO, you're expected to have learned how to quickly assess. Now, this registrar was an EU, so you do it on course over 1 or 2 weeks, For me, so when we assess this patient, clock them in, I'll clock them, but you already used to the, workload in Nigeria. And, sometimes depending on where you did your house job or which registrar you want, you know that as the house officer, you have to sort out everything. So it's not like you're waiting. So for me, I'll assess the patient, clock everything. So by the third day, then we'll go to handover, and this reg will present all those patients as if he clocked them. But at that point, I didn't see anything wrong with it. I'll keep quiet because I was like, of course, coming from where I was coming from, the culture we used to, you wouldn't talk, you wouldn't say anything. Yeah, you just keep quiet. So I didn't say anything. But I discovered this when I come the next day. Oh, some of the doctors will be like, oh, Leah, you saw this patient. Why didn't you present the patient? I'll be like, okay, I was like, oh, the reg wanted to present. I didn't send it wrong. And then going in, so it was, you do the on-calls over 4 days, then next week you do the on-calls. So by the second week with this same reg, I used to have a stroke nurse. And I remember there was a patient and he said, oh, I should traumatize the patient. And I remember that in the induction, I don't think I was, as SHO, supposed to do thrombolysis, but it was just like, you have to do. So the stroke nurse was there. I think she had made the autoplate and all of that. So I gave it to the patient. And after that as well, the way he was talking to me, but in my mind, I'm new to the system. I did, compared to where I was coming from, you've been in a situation where, if you don't do this, then you consider shouting at. So I didn't really read many into it. So it was the nurse. I was like, Leah, this is not right. You have to speak up about this. Like, this is not right. But I was scared. I was like, what am I going to say? Will I say the person was shouting at me or what? So I was confused. But then when we went to hand over, like there were some other IMGs that were like core medical trainees, but they were born here. And they were like, okay, we've seen that you've been the one clocking and all of that because it's an electronic system. You can see who's logged in. Even if you decide to present, but you see whose name is there. And I was like, okay, they were just like, particularly, that was when some of them just say, also for your safety, for all of that. So I dropped this email just based on the premise saying, particularly with thrombolysis, I was not comfortable with it and all of that. And, some of the occasions where, the rest asked me to do something that I don't think I should be doing. And surprisingly, they called me to the meeting. They were so supportive. They were like, oh my God, we're so sorry this happened to you. Yeah.
Wow.
And they actually terminated that distress contract in that rotation. Now, not everyone, you will not be in a trust where you're going to have that. Now, reverse, when I was in IMT, my IMT 2, the reverse was the case because I think it was almost like it was my supervisor that was against me in IMT 2. Now, even though the supervisor was an IMG, that's the thing. Most times, the people that actually turn out to be the worst are IMGs, which I think is something for every IMG to actually remember. No matter how high, how far you go, remember that you also started where you started from and your journey. Yeah, I don't try to now be the, the enemy or be the one causing pain. As a supervisor, you're supposed to, of course, I started IMT, I was like, I would like to do a QIP. This supervisor gave me the topic. I was okay, fine. So I started. It was a very stressful, in fact, QIP that I don't think I'll ever do. Very stressful, including trying to go to the archives to get the patient notes, to get the information. I drafted the information sheet, everything. Now, by the end of the rotation, I was like, okay, I was going to present, to mark like after to close the first cycle of the loop so that I can do the second cycle. And even after I'd prepared everything, sent the slides days before, and this supervisor came, and at the end of the presentation, she was like, how can I be sure you didn't make up this figure? In the presence of everybody as the supervisor. I was like, what is this? And he was like, oh, you need to bring everything, the evidence you collected. So I was thinking, should I have been recording myself when I was going to the to the patient to get those notes, just those records? And all through IMT, and I discovered later it was not just me. So many other trainings had the same issue. And I was like, what could I do at that point? Because I was already getting so frustrated. But I was like, I would not let this affect me. So what I did was to strategize to make sure you are one person out of so many other consultants in this hospital. What I did was to make sure I got feedback from every other consultant I'd worked with, to make sure I got assessment from every other person. So for instance, that QIP, I registered it with, the hospital QIP board. They had trails of email. That was another thing. Always keep record, keep track. I had trails of email of how I was messaging the records people to say this information I needed, to let them know. They let me know, oh, the records are available, go and get it. When I finished, the email back and forth, I had those traces. So I printed everything. I had to print all the emails. I had to print all the data collection sheet, everything to take to this man. He went through everything before he was like, oh, okay, yeah, you really did this. But in my mind, it didn't make sense. I was like, was this person expecting me that I would have cooked up the figures and was not just supportive in any way? No, by the time I got to the final sign-up, by the time he saw all the assessment from there were so many other consultants and feedbacks and everything, he had no choice, but he had to sign me off. Speaking to many people over the years, you have those difficulties. You get to a point where you're just like, how do you get over this? Or you're in a very toxic environment, that same place as well. You have people that they were pointing fingers, trying to say, once there's any mistake, they're always looking, who made that mistake, who made this? And of course, as an IMG, just makes you, even up to now, like, I'm always very careful of my surrounding, of people I work with, because I know people might be trying to hunt you down. Another time, what was even in ST4, like my supervisor say, oh, I know you work very fast, but at least I've discovered you've not made any mistake. What does that mean? That means the supervisors have been going through all my notes to try to say, has there been any mistake? I mean, so as an IMG, those are some of the things you face. You're under heavy scrutiny. Some things that I will see some other, trainees, they let them go with, they'll call me, they'll be like, even just in dressing, I'm telling you, even as a female, they'll be like, oh, the wedding band. It's not even, so I have separate wedding band for work. And of course, when I go out, it's even plain, maybe just plain stone. They'll be like, oh, it's not as allowed. And then you see some other female non-IMG trainees, even with paints and hands, like not even nude, colored. And they keep coming every day, but they won't say anything to them. So as an IMG, it's just something you should know, that regardless of where you are, you always be under heavy scrutiny. People are trying to say, who is this person? Is this person actually up to the task, or who is this type of it? It's not. And I tell people, don't let that get to you. You get to a new environment, let your work speak for you. Let your achievements do the talking. You go into a place, just maintain normal working relationship with people. That's it. But know that they'll always scrutinize the work. They are looking at your work. They are looking at, do you really know what you're doing? Like, what's your approach towards things? Even if others don't do it, but as an IMG, you should have that at the back of your mind. But don't let it get to you. Let your work do the talking. By the time, they see your work ethics, which at most IMGs, we have excellent work ethics. We're very resilient. Before you see an IMG actually speak out and say, oh, this work is hard, or I'm tired, it means that, that is true. So make sure your work will do the talking. They will accord you to the respect that you need. They will accord you every respect you need. So these are just some of the few things. But every step, at every point in time, I told myself, I was like, I can't give up. Like I've not come
Not an
this far to
option.
then say I can't do it again. I remember IMC3, that's when you step up to be a registrar. Other places, it's a supported role. You have a much more senior registrar supporting you. You have shadowing. I did not have that.
Was
Basically,
that
I went to
intentional?
IMC. So that us where I did that IMC3, it's other people that were supposed to come there as IMC3. They wrote to the deanery saying if they don't change their rotation, they were going to leave. But for me, I knew that from ST4, I wanted another deanery completely. And if I'd opted for another hospital, that meant I had to move. And it just was not feasible for 1 year to move with my family and all of that. So I was just like, I'm going to have to just endure this for the next 1 year. So I would do my commute is like 1 hour each way every day. But I was almost at the point of writing to the jury that I can't continue or I can't do this job because it was so much. The pressure was so much. But I told myself, I was like, okay, fine. If you now say you're not doing it again, so what will happen? Like,
What
what
are
will
the
become of it?
options?
Yeah, exactly. What are the options? And I just remember, I just told myself, I was like, you can do this. So it is more like a self-motivation. Unlike now, I speak with so many people reach out, particularly even people having problems with work or trying to settle into medical registrar job. I tell you, just chat to me. Sometimes they run ideas past, what do you think I should do? Because I know I've been there. I know that it's not easy, even when you have the support. And just say, these are these are the steps you need to follow. These are things you need to do to adapt, to adjust, to get better. And with those tips, they're actually certainly willing to draw. So as IMGs, you always face challenges. I tell you always face difficulty. But number one, you should always ask yourself, what was your why of going on that journey? Number two, if you decide to give up, then what?
What next?
Yeah. And you don't really know how far you can go until you push yourself. You don't really know what you're capable of, of what qualities you have, of how you can adjust and excel. And during this IMC3 was when I did my paces. I didn't have anybody I practiced with. I only went for the course and that was it. And I came back, drew out my strategy. I didn't have anybody I practiced with. A week to the exam, I was using my husband to practice the examination to time myself. But I didn't have any study partner, any practice partner. So and then I went for the exam. When I had that score, I was like, okay, that means without having anyone, you can actually excel without even having any support or anything by yourself, knowing that why am I doing this? How can I get over this challenge, over this situation? You can make it. And I think that's part of the good qualities of human beings, or even as IMGs, we're very resilient. And if you set our mind to do something, we'll do it. So for any IMG, if you face any challenge, know that you're not alone. Reach out. That's why now you have a huge community of resources online, social media, everything. Reach out to somebody, send a message, try to search who is in this specialty. Reach out, just say, okay, can I just get your advice about this? Yeah. And you'll be surprised that so many people have even had much more serious challenges and they've
Challenges
navigated
than
it.
you're
Yeah.
facing.
So don't stay in isolation. That's the good thing with this generation, this age we are, where you have so much diversity, so much opportunities available. Yeah.
So talking about the paces, I'll just take you a bit back now. Here, even though I don't know that it's a very difficult exam.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how difficult is it? And I mean, you've talked a bit about your strategies, how you sort of
Yeah.
prepared for it. Could you shed more light on that?
Yeah. So the MRCP Paces exam is the last stage of the MRCP exam. So there's MRCP 1 and 2, which are like multiple choice question. But MRCP Paces exam is a clinical exam, like where you have live patients. So where you are expected to, within 5 minutes, do a full maybe neurology exam and find the diagnosis and be able to talk about the case. So it requires you to have a broad knowledge of all medical conditions, I would say, of even complex. You should be able to do a full cardiology exam within 6 minutes, pick any abnormal heart sound, pick any abnormality, be able to say it on the spot, this is what I think, and manage the patient. So it's a very difficult exam because you don't know what case you're going to get. You don't know, what's the marking scheme. You don't know the examiner's mode, although they have marking scheme that which they should follow. But you don't know what case you're going to get, which makes it much more difficult if you think of the whole of medicine, internal medicine, all specialties,
Yeah.
anything can come out. So, which makes it really difficult. Apart from just the examination part, even if you cram and try to cram the examination part, you have the communication part, you have the consultation part. As IMGs, communication is not our strong suit. Empathy is not really what, because obviously with the culture and our medical training is completely different. So it's something that most IMGs really struggle. Even for UK-based, UK trained graduate, they still struggle with the MRCP Paces exam just because it's just unpredictable. You don't know what you're going to get. It expects you to be so sleek and to have, a broad knowledge of, medical knowledge. And within those few minutes, be able to arrive at the diagnosis and convey to the examiner, what you're doing, or to the simulator. So I found the exam, before I took the exam, I was so scared. You've read many people have done it 4 times, 5 times. And you can't predict what you will get, really. And for me, at that point, it was a very crucial point, but it was an IMC3. It was either, if I didn't pass the exam, they were going to extend my training, or even if they extended it, then what's the likelihood I will pass it the next time? Because the fact you've done it once or twice, it doesn't mean you still pass it again. Because you're going to get different questions, different pathologies. So, you don't know what you would get. But for me, I would say at that point, I just told myself, I just have to give it my all. So I remember going for, there was a course after I asked few people, and I went for a course, and I saw some people, in the exam, I thought I'd at least try to go through some materials.
Yeah.
And they were asking us differential. I see some people listing 6, 7. I was like, okay, where did these people get these answers from? And like people are like, oh, they're picking this, that story more. This, I'm like, okay, where did they find it? But I didn't let that perturb me, because I was like, okay, at this point, you just need to know how to do this thing. And I started observing those people closely, and I saw some materials. They were using some more books and all of that. And I bought those books. I bought those books. I will go after we've already in batches examine patient. And all those ones I missed, or I could not even make sense of, I will go back to all the patient and try to examine myself and try to pick those signs. I will go and ask those people, don't be shy. That's it. I'll go and ask those people, sorry, can you tell me how you identify this? Or how you heard this? Yeah, that's the thing. When you want to learn, when it comes to succeed, don't be shy. Don't say, okay, they will not think I don't know. Yeah, I was like, think that I don't know it, that's fine. My purpose is to know it. That's why I've come to ask. And we'll be in class, they'll be like, volunteer for communication, I'll volunteer. Even if I didn't do it well, I'll volunteer, because because I told myself, I just have to throw myself in and make the best of the situation. So by the time I finished that course and went back, I was able to draw a strategy, because I'd say, oh, this is how, at least because we did mocks and everything, and this is how I think I should prepare, or what I'm deficient in. And I started working on that, reading materials and all of that, and trying to practice to the best of my ability myself, because obviously I don't know what's going to happen, in the exam, what case I'm going to get. But I found that going into that exam, I basically I knew what to do. I was examining this patient, and I was picking up all the signs, and literally, in fact, for some of them, I finished before time. For a few of them, I finished the examination before time, and I knew the answer. And literally, I was just telling the examiners this, and this. Because I think you need to understand yourself. Do you work under pressure? For me, I think I perform better when I'm under pressure, when there's a deadline. I think I've observed myself. Having that exam, I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. And you need to set or target for yourself. You need to be able to motivate yourself. Speak with people. Nowadays, there's so many people you can speak with. And I went to that exam, and of course, by the time the results came out, and I had 169 over 172, I was, even for myself, I was blown away, because I was like, okay, that means I got literally everything. By the time they sent the breakdown of all the diagnosis, all the clinical signs, all the communication station was full marks. And that was when I wrote, I wrote the blog post about the strategy and the materials. And many people have reached out that many of them, they just sat down with the blog post and were trying to replicate it. And many of them, they've seen fantastic results. I just say,
awesome.
I went through this approach. This is what I used, because it's understanding yourself, knowing that you need to motivate yourself, you need to sell it, you need to push yourself, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of the situation. You can do much more than you even think you can. And I think that's one good thing to see, my opinion, that God has given us, that you can achieve so much more.
Interesting.
And that was part of the reason. I mean, I started tutoring for Paces and all of that.
Yeah, so that nicely leads me to my next question. That's the ACE Academy, right? Which you sort of run. So how's that going? What's the impact so far?
Yeah. So obviously after the Paces, after my Paces result came out, I did the blog post. So many people were actually reaching out on Facebook, and I started doing like tutoring people even over the phone, like WhatsApp call, and just saying this is what you should do. Because then I then discovered that I could start when I say do this station, I pick literally and just say this is what you're not doing right. This is what you should do, just so unconsciously. And I did that over a few months. Then people reached out to some of the co-founders of this Academy, because they too were also trying to do it in their own small way. So we sort of joined forces and founded the ACE Academy. And we are all IMGs, we are all Nigerians in the UK as well, all in different specialties in internal medicine. Because if you look at the statistics from Royal College of Physicians about the performance of IMGs compared to UK medical graduates, the statistics are not good at all in number that actually pass Paces. Now, that reflects overall on how IMGs will progress in their career, because passing the MRCP is a huge determinant in getting into specialty training. So that means many people will be stuck at that point. And for us, we wanted to change that narrative to say, how can we make things better? So we started with free weekly courses. So free weekly, in fact, when we started, most of our sessions runs about 1.5 hours, where we go through all the stations. So each week we try to change the scenarios. We drop the scenarios ourselves. Because obviously there's guidelines on the MRCP website about this is the approach, or this is how the questions most likely should be. If you're asking the question, this is what you expect them to ask. So we started the free session. So we ran that for like a year, and at least minimum we had about 30 people participants each session every week. And at the end of 9 months, we did like a survey. So we collected a survey and just asked people, say, I think we had up to 58 respondents, even though we had so much more people on the platform, and to say, how do you think this has helped you? How do you think this has impacted you? Overall, even as an IMG, seeing fellow IMGs saying, well, I've actually scaled through and actually said this is how you should do it. And the feedback was really, really remarkable, saying number of people that through just attending the free sessions, they've passed the exams. People that just by attending free sessions, it's actually changed their mindset that even as an IMG, you can actually flourish and pass your MRCP Paces exam. And we presented it at the RCP conference, and it was published. That was last year as well. So that went on, because obviously after we started doing, people were reaching out, do you run courses? Do you run this? So we had to sit down and say, okay, what's the next step? So we started our intensive course. I remember the first batch of people that came for the course, I think there were 5. And they were like, oh my God, like you guys, and it was just a talking we tried. And like, you guys are offering too much for the amount you are charging us. There was even people that came that said, oh my God, like this is too cheap for what you're actually giving. Because some of them had gone to physical course, they've gone to live, like physical course, and like, this is nothing compared to what we even get from the physical course. Wow. So we started the courses, then the master classes as well. And I think for the past 1 year, we've been running monthly courses, we've been running, monthly master classes, we've been running monthly mocks. And based on the feedback, you have people coming. Last year, someone said she joined the platform March. She did that exam in November. She only attended all the free sessions. Based on the free session, she was able to draft a strategy towards passing the exam and came from our mock, and she passed. Excellent scores. You have people coming after I remember like someone like in a communication station, she had 5/16 in the first attempt. By the next attempt, she had full marks in her communication station.
Oh.
Not just one, but there's so many testimonials, people just posting on the group because I just say, oh my God, thank you so much for what you guys are doing. I just attend, even people we didn't know that were attending, just said, okay, I've been a silent, participant, but just be able to have passed based on this. And I remember some of the few mocks we actually drafted, people going to the exam and seeing the exact question, because we drafted them out, but they go into of course, we don't know what they're doing the exam and seeing the same thing. So which also say the power of synergy and just saying that once you, as IMGs, we've gone through this part, we understand the system, we know that this is what you should do that will work for you. This is how you should strategize the exam and work for you. And try to replicate that so that, people can just get over the MRCP Paces, I would say, like for some people, it's a stumbling block, and just say, you can actually get full marks, and of recent, I have people that message me and just say, you've inspired me because they are almost getting full marks in the exam now. So that's been going on for up to 2 years, and we're still running it. And now we have people that benefited from the sessions that are also willing to give back. So they reach out and say, I want to help with the teaching sessions. We have a few people doing that just free of charge. They say,
Wow.
that's my way of giving back, to just help, teach and deliver teaching session. And we've taken even beyond that. So even in local level, for instance, in the trust I work, I help organize the PACES teaching because I just know how far these things go. To say, if I've gone through that system and I passed and I had that score, and I sort of know that this is the strategy that should work, this is how you should go about it, and just trying to help as many people as possible. I think the first thing is about all of us, we're quite passionate about saying, how can we change the narrative of IMG's performance in that exam? How can we help and contribute towards people's career development? So now on the platform, we have more than IMGs. We have, UK medical, we have quite a number of UK medical graduates, and we have IMGs from all over different countries on the platform as well, that attend the weekly session. So each of our weekly sessions, we still have up to 40 people that attend coming on each time. And on the platform, we have over 600 people. That's apart from those that even joined and not yet on the platform. So, and it's something we're looking to even make better. So at some point, going to physical courses, trying to collaborate with much more bodies to just say, how can we help more people? Just continue what we're doing.
Oh, that's interesting. I think you guys are doing a really amazing stuff. So how are you able to balance all of this, your work in acute medicine with family life?
Yeah, that's one of the questions I get asked most. I think a lot of people ask me that question. I think the first thing is that I would tell people is that when there's a will, there's a way. Number two, you need to know what works for you. You need to set your priorities. So, for instance, you can't compare yourself and say, for instance, I know I'm in acute medicine. I can't compare myself and say this other person's in GP. For instance, even while in training, they don't do weekends, they don't do night. But me, I know how to do on calls. I know how to do. And at that time, I was preparing for exams. So you can't compare your own self with another. You need to know, number one, what was for you. Particularly, you are not in your country. You are in a foreign country. There's so many peculiarities. Is it childcare? Is it, timing? There's so many things that, unlike back home where easily you can get so much help, is different. So I think the first thing is really, really saying what works for you, not comparing yourself to others, trying to set your priorities. So for me, like for instance, I know my rota almost 4 months in advance. I have a calendar app, a planner. I put in everything, every single thing on the calendar. Even months in advance, like I look at when the weekend I'm not on call, okay, we need to go out as a family this weekend. Even when I want to make my hair, all of that, I put it on the calendar. I try to book it in advance. If I'm supposed to call somebody or send email, I try to put it so I can remember, because I tell you, it's so busy, it can be really stressful, but it's still doable. Some things will take more priority than the other. At some point, so you have to put some things behind, like just shelve some things for some time. For instance, I remember when I was still doing exams and all of that, weekends I had to go to library. I could not read at home because there'll be a lot of distraction. So Saturday, you see me in the morning, I would have gone to the library till evening before I go home. Or weekends, when I finish work, I'm going to the library because that was just the only way. If I'm at home, I'm just deceiving myself because I could not study. And I had to, if you're married, you have to communicate with your partner. So you and your partner, you have to be in synergy and just say, how can this work for us as a unit? I remember that time when, if I'm on call, of course, my husband would go with my son to church. I'd be like, oh, your wife is not here. Or he goes grocery shopping, comment like, why you do not go grocery shopping? It was like, oh, we are going to eat, things like that. So, and I'm like, what is you people's business? Like,
exactly.
How is it your headache if it's the one doing grocery shopping? So you understand things like that. But if you guys are not united and know that, your if maybe the wife's advancement is also for the benefit of the other person, the husband's advancement is also for the benefit. So if there's no understanding or that synergy, then things will fall apart because there is just no way you can do it on your own, particularly in this country. For instance, I remember that was because my husband was working in that city where we were, and my son's nursery was there. And of course, you have to have a parent as a backup, if they call you from the nursery to always be available. So I didn't mind I was commuting because I felt it won't be fair for us to move. And, because obviously it's not a doctor, it's an engineer, then he has to start looking for a job. So we had to really communicate all of that. And even by the time we then moved over to, where I got my ST4 trade number, and we knew that, okay, from ST4 to the end, we'll be in that region. But of course, I was like, okay, I don't mind. I'll commute to wherever it is, but we can't keep moving just for some stability. So if you're married, there must be communication. There must be synergy. There must be understanding. You have to close your eyes to what people will say, particularly, Nigerians, they like to just try to, I don't know, interfere and just try to give opinion and say, a family is doing it like that. A family, all of them will come to church every Sunday. Yeah, you can't see me in church every Sunday because I will do on course. I will not. It's part of the decision or the training route I'm taking. So to be different from another person that Saturday they are there, Sunday they are there. If on days I'm free, you will see me, but that can't be the case at all times. Even as a consultant, there's some weekend you will still work, even though it's not frequent, but it's different. So you have to know yourself as a unit. You have to understand. You have to plan. You have to prioritize. Most times weekends, when I'm off, I do bulk cooking. But I remember that time during exams, I can't have the time. So sometimes, I outsource. You outsource to other people to say, okay, this is what I need. That will not take us for, a week or 2 weeks. My husband helps a lot. He's very hands-on, does cooking. He helps with grocery shopping, he helps with childcare and all of that. So there must be that understanding. Don't compare yourself. Don't say because family every Sunday they are going together. No, if you do that, there's no way to work for you. Or you're saying, because they will say, I'm the one going to go shop. I can't. No, it won't work. You have to close your ears to what people will say. You have to plan. You have to strategize. Planning ahead is very, very important if you want to achieve so many things. And for me, that is very, very key, very pivotal. I have to know what's my time scale ahead, what's my time plan. And it's very important to know when to break off from so many things. When, people reach out and say, sorry, at this point, my schedule is busy. I can't take this on. We invite you to a program. Sorry, at this point, this is not convenient. Know when to actually say no and say, sorry, at this point, I can't do this. You cannot please everybody. You cannot take everything up at the same time. You have to know what you have to prioritize at a certain time, what you can do at a certain time. Give yourself time. During that time when I'm preparing for exam, I give myself up to 6 months before that exam. I'm not 3 months because I know that's not feasible. There's so many things happening. So you have enough time to plan, to strategize so that you can achieve your goal. So you're not always in a worry, in a rush and all of that. Even with that, it's still very busy. Life is still busy. Sometimes it's like, you're cutting off. I remember I used to have reminders on my social media, the time limits I put to say, after so and so time, I know that I've had enough time for the day. Or you're logging off for if it's for a few weeks, few months, to say you want to achieve this goal. If you have to do it, it's something that you have to do. But I would say those are some of the strategies that I've sort of put in place. Also, self-care is very important. Self-care, looking after yourself, otherwise you'll be burned out. For me, I think I recognize signs when I'm getting towards burnout, and I'm like, okay, you need to just chill. Or if you start just trying to book some annual leaves and say, even those annual leaves, it's just to be sleeping or waking up. I know it's part of rest, but recognizing when before you hit those limits, because if you break down, then obviously it will set you back. You won't be able to achieve many things. Self-care is very important. Knowing when to just unplug from so many things, because you will get so many discouraging, you will get so many side comments, you get so many things people will be saying. But I think as a person, trying to really filter what you would take, what you would value, or what comments you will accept is very, very necessary. And I think if you can do that, that would really, really help a lot to achieve so many things.
It's interesting to hear some of the tips that are working for you, and I think I've taken some points for myself too. So looking at your work now as a specialist registrar, right, in acute and general internal medicine, what's your typical day like?
So obviously the part of the training it involves, we have to do some component rotation. So respiratory medicine, cardiology, ICU, geriatrics. And so we have to do 6-month block in all of these specialties, apart from acute medicine unit itself, which is 18 months. And during all of this rotation, you still have to do on calls. So for each point, it depends on this rotation you have. So I've just literally finished respiratory medicine rotation. That was for 6 months. So a typical week will usually be Monday to Friday, and most places start 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Now, it depends on the frequency of the on-calls. I've worked in some trusts where the frequency of on-calls is every 3 weeks. So every 3 weeks, which is a rolling rota, and the on-calls is like maybe you start from Monday to Thursday, from 8 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., Monday to Thursday. And then you're just off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday, you're back. You're back to doing 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then they give you Thursday off. Then you do on calls again Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then you now have Monday, Tuesday off, so you're back. So you're going to have some months where you're working almost 6 days a week, or you're doing on calls sometimes can be up to 10, which obviously during those times is very hectic. But if it's a normal working day, you'll be on your respective ward. So if you're in a respiratory rotation, you'll be in a respiratory unit. Now, it also does not cover, there's so many competencies you're expected to achieve. So clinics, procedures, you're expected to do teaching, study leave. So all of these are incorporated into that. So if it's a normal, just ward run working day, you're on the ward seeing patient doing ward run. During those days as well, you might have teaching. So you have to go and do that teaching. You might have that, you need to do some procedures. You go and do it during that working day. You will still document. If you're at clinics, you still have to dictate clinic letters. And of course, you know that your closing time is 4:30. So which sometimes practically most time you don't leave 4:30.
You missed it, yeah.
You would not leave 4:30. Most time you might leave 5. Now, if it's even days of on calls, sometimes there have been many times where you should finish handover 8:30, but then you have emergencies. You have to document, you have to sort it out, then you're staying 30, 40 minutes extra. So it is very, very tedious. It's very tedious. For me, like now, I start 8 a.m. I must be up by 5:30. It's a must. I must leave on latest 6:30 because of the traffic. Because handover we start 8 on point. Now, it depends. There's some hospitals I've worked where the driving distance was shorter, so that's different. Or some they start at 9, but you have to know what time do you start? What's the distance to your hospital? Because also you have to look at yourself that apart from just being a job, this is also people's life, people you're treating.
Yeah.
There's a level of responsibility that you need to have. About your punctuality. Even if you're late some few days, but can't keep repeating itself all the time. And so I would say if it's a normal working week, yeah, that's it. But if it's on calls, it's really, really more tedious. And on calls are really unpredictable. So apart from saying on days I'm on call, particularly from ST5 and above, most time you be the most senior registrar after the consultant. So during the day you be after consultant, but at night you most likely be the most senior medical patient and medical doctor. all over the hospital. So you come, you're getting calls from GPs, you're getting calls from out of hours, you're getting calls from ambulance crew for advice, for should this patient come in, you're getting referrals from A&E, you're looking after, you're also responsible, taking leadership of the on-call team. So of course you have the much more junior colleagues like the foundation doctors or other junior trainees where you also have to look after them. They come to you for advice. This patient I've seen, because it's about you also, apart from the clinical role, the thing with being a medical registrar is, apart from the clinical knowledge, there's also the leadership role, which I think many times even surpasses the clinical role, because
side.
you need to be able to say, this is why we should do this is what we should do, and take those decisions. Most times, they are actually life-changing decisions. You're deciding, should we institute this treatment for this patient? And the consultant, at that point, they want to believe in you that you can manage and take that responsibility. So even if you are just starting as a registrar and you're calling consultant for help, to get to a point, they don't expect you. There's some certain question they don't expect you to call it. There's some things they expect you to be able to handle. So, I think it takes a bit of time to mature and just graduate into that role. And for me, I say that the IMC3 for me was a turning point for me, because it really stretched me, but at the same time enabled me to gain so many qualities that, going forward, wherever I find myself, I just know that this is what I'm expected to do. And that's also what the training program is expected to be, that with each year, you should get better. We change rotations, with completing certain competency. There's so many things. But I tell people, particularly in the UK, you have to decide what type of training you would be. Unlike maybe in countries like US, where, their own style of training is different. It's completely different. If you're in the UK, you decide what type of training you would be. If you don't push yourself many times, you might not really learn some things, or you might not really get some qualities. So, which is why sometimes you can see varying types of approach, or when you work with different people and you just so many of them, like this person knows whether this person, it's just because of, number one, what type of what specialty they are in. Because obviously, medical registrar, depending on what specialty you are, it will determine what skills you will have, what competencies you would have. And for me, that's some reason why I went for acute medicine, because I felt it's a specialty that whatever comes, I can manage. Wherever you are, you can fit in. So if you're respiratory, you know that you can sort out chest drain, pneumothorax, all of that. You can coordinately manage. If you're cardiology, if you're ICU, so that was why I went for a specialty like that, because I'm like, okay, what if I'm at the point and the patient, I don't know what to do. I didn't want to be in that position. I think it's just also my personality. And that was one of the reasons I went for acute medicine. So, I mean, the on-call rota depends on which hospital you are, your work structure, but basically you have normal working days, you have on-calls as well, you have nights, you have weekend on-calls as well. So it's just a rolling rota, and it just varies.
And does this vary across trust, or is it?
Yeah. So some trusts, their frequency of on-calls differs from other hospitals, from other trusts. Some trusts, the way they structure their on-calls, they don't do it in lump sum, they spread it out. Whereas some trusts, they just do everything back to back. So that's why rota will keep changing depending on which hospital you move to. But the basic thing is that there's normal working days, you have clinic days, you have, if you need to go to do procedures, you need to have study leaves, you have on-calls as well.
And what's the length of time of training?
Oh, so the UK training is so long. I would say for most specialties, aside for GP, 7 years. And then so for me, it's actually for acute medicine, so everyone, you have to do IMT 1, 2, 3. Except if you decide to go for group 2 specialties, that one, you don't need to, it's not compulsory to do IMT3. So like hematology, oncology, some other like clinical genetics and some other specialties, you can do IMT 1 and 2. And then they start from SC3 to like ST7. So it's still 7 years. Okay. Now, some can be up to ST8 or even up to 9 years, depending on if you decide to accredit in 3 specialties. So for instance, for me, it's just acute and general internal medicine to get to ST7. Now, for some people, they want to do acute, general medicine, and ICU. For them, it's extra 2.5 years.
Wow.
So
2.5.
making 9. Yeah. Exactly. And now, obviously, there will be so many factors because if you look at it, it's a very long training. Now, there are opportunities for people to go less than full time, to actually split the training and say, I will work 4 days, which is another way to read, which helps a lot of people to manage and deal with burnout and stress. So they can decide they're going 80%, they'll have a fixed day of the week where they are off, regardless of if they're on calls or not, they'll choose a particular day of the week. Some people, they'll 2 days in that week, in every week, regardless of on course, it should be structured into their rota. Obviously, it's going to affect the pay, but for some people, they find it that helps them, to deal with
manage
burnout
load.
and just manage the long, training. And then they can decide you want to come back to full time, then you come back, or if you just want to continue less than full time. But of course, that will also take the training longer. So for most specialties, 7 years, apart from GP, obviously, minimum is 7 years.
That's a long time anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I tell people take it 1 year at a time because I remember when I started and now I'm ST6, so about to finish. So
You
take
just
it,
got 1 year to go.
yeah, 1 year, 6 months. So, and even the last 6 months, most time you can start acting up as consultant. So I tell
Okay.
people take it 1 year at a time because when I look back, it just feels like yesterday when I started. Just take
Yeah.
it 1 year at a time. Because if you look at the long,
Get
maybe if it's
discouraged.
really what you want to do, then just go for it. Because before you know it, either you start or not, the time will pass.
It will still pass
That's
anyway.
exactly. So if it's really what you want to do, then just go for it. Just go for it. And if at some point you are feeling overwhelmed, yeah, you can always go less than full time. Cut down on the number of days or hours you work so that you can really adapt. So yeah.
So the less than full time, is it something you start at the beginning of training, or maybe you're halfway, you're like, okay, I think I'm stressed. Can you put
Yeah,
me on
you
less
can
than full?
always request on it anytime. You can
Okay.
always request for it. Nowadays, yeah. Unlike before, it was only used for exceptional circumstances, but now it's open to everyone. If you just say, I want to cut down my days or my hours. So at any point, and if you decide to come back full time,
To full
the
time.
options are always available. Yeah. And I think which is something really good. Yeah, it's really good.
You mentioned it affects pay. Is the
Yeah.
pay cut significant?
So for most people that have asked, because for me, I've been full-time ever since. For most people, they will say it's not much. They will tell you it's not that much compared to how they are able to achieve a better balance with their life.
Mhm.
They'll say it's not much. For me, I just want to do it and get it done with. So
And
I've been
just finish with
full-time.
it.
Yeah. So I've been full-time.
Can
But they will say
imagine.
it's not much. Yeah. They will say it's not much.
For some people, it's not, everything's not about money.
Exactly. It's about and that is it. Even for
Because
some people, they don't mind. They'll
that
say they
other
don't
bit,
mind.
money can't really buy it,
It
so.
can't, yeah. And obviously with childcare as well, I know so many people that they had to go less than full time so they can balance the childcare. So
Out
they know
there.
that this day of the
I'm
week
at
they're
home.
off, they can be the children, they can sort out childcare. Some especially for those that if their partner or spouses are medics as well, they have to sync their rota and say, which days are you off, which days can I work, and make sure. So yeah, it's a lot of planning. Yeah. Particularly if you're in the UK, you have to do a lot of planning. And you have children, you have to plan a lot. Yeah.
That's a lot to show there, really. But like you
Yes.
said, IMGs are very resilient. So
Yeah.
just take it head on and
Exactly.
get get through with it. So just conscious of time. I think
Yeah.
we've run past the
Oh, dear.
normal stuff, really. So you looking at your social media now, I know you
Yeah.
do a lot of well, maybe not regular or whatever, I don't know,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
still do stuff on social media. How are you able to balance, medicine, content creation?
Yeah, it's really a lot, I would say, because that's why, like, I just can't see myself posting every day or full content creation. So most importantly, I think medical education is something that I'm passionate about. So that's usually what I post much more about. And really, it was because after I started posting, people started reaching out, asking questions. I was like, okay, and then you see the same people. Another person asking you the same question. So, okay, why can't I make it to a post, into a content so that subsequently the information is there for anyone that asks and they can have access to it. So obviously what I try to do is to like plan ahead as well, like try to create content, maybe in a week, I say, okay, this is the list of content I want to do. Obviously, it's not going to be every day because there's just no way to say, is it 2 times or 3 times a week? I want to post content and try to, so I have like a notes. I try to draft what I intend to post, what I intend to write ahead and try to, so I think since growing up, I've been a bit more conversant with the computers and all of that. So I do a lot of the editing myself. Obviously with time, if I get so busy, you can get people to do that, but I'm very conscious that obviously it also takes time for you to communicate what you want to those people to then do it. So I'm just like, why can't I do it myself? So I do a lot of the editing on my phone, actually. I even have a YouTube channel I started during COVID, but I've not been able to upload of recent. But I'm quite, what I know is that because when people reach out and be like, oh my God, the post you made about this was what I used. And I'm like, just motivated to say that means there are people out there that will benefit from this information, even if it's 1 or 2 people. And I think that's the driving force about what motivates me to keep doing and posting a lot of content. So in free time, weekends I'm off, I'm just trying to, post. I'm trying to write up stuff. I'm trying to edit in advance, and just not make it complex because I'm the type of person I love things being perfect. But I've tried to step back from that and say it's not about being perfectionism. It's about just being consistent with it. Otherwise, if you like, it has to be perfect, then you won't get anything done.
Yeah, one of my managers used to say, "Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress."
Exactly. Yeah. So
just keep it going. I mean, it's been an interesting 1 hour plus chatting with you. So, final words, if anybody who is looking to get into acute and internal medicine, what would you say to them?
I would say it's a very, I tell people internal medicine is the bedrock of medicine. I tell you,
Some people would disagree anyway.
No, it is because even the human body, it's all about internal medicine. There's no way you would not need internal medicine. So from the head to the toe, even as a baby, as a child, even geriatrics, everything you would need internal medicine. So I would tell people that the sky, it's not even the limit. The sky is the starting point of what you can achieve, of how far you can go, of so many things that you can get exposed to and get competent with. You'll be really surprised at what is happening nowadays with technology. Medicine has even taken a huge jump to things that are possible, unlike before. So I would say, don't let anything stop your dream. Don't be discouraged. There will be challenges. It's not going to be easy road. I'm telling you, all of this that I've just said, it's not going to be easy. You will get to some point where you question, why have I embarked on this journey?
Your decision.
And you need to know your why. And that why should be the driving force. And know that anything is possible. If someone like me has gone through and now I'm like, oh, I'm almost finishing, you can do it and you can even be better. And always maximize resources, reach out to people, network, ask questions. And you get there.
All right, great. So I know people who will be watching probably be thinking, how can they reach you? So how can they reach out to you?
So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. So my Twitter handle is at Dr. Ifelia. That's the same as my Instagram handle as well. So you can always drop a message or comment under the post. I try to check, like every 2 or 3 days to try to check a message request. And obviously I try to post every 2 or 3 days. So even if you say post and you want to reach out, you can always drop a message or via email. For email, it comes in more frequently. So my email is ifelia@gmail.com. But you can reach me on any of the social media handles or send an email.
LinkedIn.
So I'm on LinkedIn, but not too active. It's just because all of this is so much. I like there's Facebook, there's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's Twitter. So I'm on LinkedIn actually, but I'm not too active there because for me it's just a lot to social media and to just manage at the same time. So I have I have a blog post as well where I try to put up blogs. So for me, my most active where you find most is on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook sometimes, but and via email. So yeah,
I'll probably get those details and put them in the chat description so that people can easily find you. I think I'll probably plead on their behalf for you to get active on LinkedIn because
On
that's it.
here.
Yeah.
Okay. My profile is there, but I'm not that active. But I'll try. It's just a lot to combine all being active on all those social media platforms.
Platforms,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
Yeah, I
lot.
get
Yeah.
it too because I don't think I'm so active on Facebook, and maybe I do more of LinkedIn
Oh,
than any
okay.
other place really. So
Please.
everybody has got their own preference
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
That's fine. So thank you so much for spending some time with us. And if you're
Right.
watching, don't forget to subscribe. Also follow Dr. Ajayi. I'll share her handle in the comment section.
Yeah. I'm
And
just
I'll
forward.
see you guys in the next episode. And bye for now.